Hi guys, my name's Seb Tudor, I'm the man on the Silver Mountain, and welcome back. Now today I want to talk about habits. Why? Because we were talking about practice earlier in the week, and habits are a big part of practice. Habitually getting into the right stance for whatever it is that you're doing, be it playing a musical instrument, a sport, whatever. You know, um, it all comes down to habits, and habits, they tend to take about 1 to 2 months of doing something fairly continuously to force into forming. But there are a few other ways to kind of develop those things as well. Like one of the things that we as coaches tend to do is kind of go do this thing once every day. That'll help you kind of get used to doing it every day. Eventually, you won't be thinking about doing it every day, and it'll just be a thing that happens every day, and so you can see the benefit of it over time. But there are some other things, other ways to do bits and pieces, and build up your habits in different ways. And I just want to go over those with you. So I've got 5 things here that can kind of help you achieve the bits and pieces that we're talking about here. So the first thing is what I was first introduced to as chunking, where you have and this is something that plays a big part in the kind of goal setting area of coaching as well anyway. But you have your kind of major goals, and then you've got your kind of micro objectives, or your actions. And this is basically the beginning of the process that I go through with any client. And that is that you have your overarching goal, but then you break down into specifics every action that you need to take and put them into hierarchies. So it's a case of, right, well, let's say I want to be able to afford a new car. Great, so what do I need to do in terms of actions below that are smaller actions branching out for me to tick off and go through as I go. That's how I would address it in coaching. So how would I address it with developing of a habit? Well, in regards to developing of a habit, let's say that I need to, I don't know, practice my flute, something that I've not done in an awfully long time, but let's say that that's something that I wanted to do. In which case, my major goal would be maybe to learn a new piece of music. My lower actions, my smaller actions, would be things like getting used to playing the flute again, correcting my stance, making sure that I did my scales and things to get used to my fingerings again, so that I was on top of things, and as well as breaking down the piece of music into certain areas, so that maybe if I was finding something difficult, I'd go over that piece of music, like that phrase or two several times to get through to it. It's breaking it down into those specific little chunks, those specific little actions. And you can break them down into as smaller actions as possible, but they need to be quite specific in regards to what you're doing, so that then if you're writing this down as a plan for, this is how I want to develop my habits, this is how I want to just automatically pick things up and do things after a certain point, this is where you need to write this stuff down and work with it. The next thing is creating kind of chained behaviors. This is the kind of schema method of thinking around things. That are like schemas in psychology, whereby you have your kind of blueprints for things that you wish to do. And so let's say you want to keep your room tidier, in which case you don't just go, oh, well, I'm just going to tidy more. No, you go and give yourself a chain of actions that are very specifically one following the next, following the next, following the next, that you do every day, every 2 days. You do them on a regular schedule. And so, for instance, let's take the room cleaning example. So it would be a case of, say, you come home from work, school, wherever you've been, and then you have your chain of come home, get food, get changed, clean surfaces, do washing up, come upstairs, tidy your room, take out the bins, and then relax. Yeah, and you follow that pattern every day, and you just go through it, cycling that normal pattern, so that then when it becomes a case of in the future, after you've done this a few times, after you've got it into your system, it becomes a case of, right, well, you've come home, and so then the next thing that you've got to do is, oh, well, it's already happened because you've just automatically followed through on that chain of actions, that process that you have put in place. Now, sometimes this leads to a lack of flexibility, I find, when I've had clients kind of adopt this as an idea where they've kind of chained their behaviors. Because sometimes, especially if you've got people who are more prone to anxiety or more prone to kind of OCD and things like that, then when, let's say, they can't do a thing because something's broken or because they've got something else that's come up or whatever else, then the being unable to fulfill that part of the chain causes them a little bit more stress than it would other people, and that can make it difficult for them to kind of proceed with the chain and kind of feel good about it at the end and get to the relaxing part. But it's still something that's worthwhile to do because it's that kind of picking up on things and going through it. One of the things that I saw as part of kind of the confidence side of dating coaching at one point was there was an individual who was having real trouble actually looking into the eyes of a coach. And so what he was told to do, so that it was a habitual thing by the end of like a month and a half, I think he was given to do this. He was told that for 10 minutes he needed to sit there with a magazine, a TV magazine or something with an attractive woman on the front, and he needed to look into her eyes and just not blink, just focus for like 5-10 minutes every day, just getting used to looking into someone else's eyes. And so as a result, at the end of that period, maybe he would still look away a little more than necessary if he was nervous, but otherwise the rest of the time he was very good at making eye contact because he had just got used to doing it every day in a very simulated and made up situation that was obviously fake because he was holding the magazine in his hands. It was still enough for his brain to start going, yeah, actually habitually you should look people in the eyes. You should get more used to doing that, and we're going to focus on doing it. And it's that's maybe a bit of an odd example, but it's still actions that follow through, where it's a case of over time with these patterns that you can build in every day of a scheduled set of actions that follow one after the other that then allow you to kind of expand on those into the rest of your life. That is something that is doable. The next thing is you need to remove fantasies, because there are lots of people who are like, oh well, I'd love to habitually get up at 6:30 every morning and go for a run, and then they don't because bed is comfy. And so it becomes this case of you can put your plan in place, so they've already said, yeah, I'm going to get up at 6:30 every morning and go for a run, but then it becomes more of a fantasy because they've maybe talked about it and they've got this visual impression of it, but then they don't do it, and they've got their plan written out, and that's it. They have taken an action and taken it as all of the actions are now done, to the extent that then they just stop. And this is what we see time and time again with New Year's resolutions. People have their plan, people have their idea, their visualization, what they want, and then they don't do it because they've done one thing and that's enough for them. And so as a result, it's that you can take time to plan, you can take time to process new information, you can take time to work out whether or not the thing that you are doing is actually working at building whatever habit it is that you want. But don't just fantasize about it. Don't let yourself stop after you've I've written out my plan, good job, I'll pick this up again tomorrow, and then you don't. Don't let that happen. And that's just a little self-policing thing more than anything else. In regards to a client with me who's looking to develop habits, it would be a case of me then following up with them and not, giving them a kick up the arse if they decide to kind of sit on their backside and not follow through. But otherwise, it's just a case of just making sure that you do what you say you're going to do. Now, the next two are kind of similar. One of which is that you need to eliminate the excess options. So when you've got all of these different things that you can do, all of these different things that can kind of impact what you're doing and the habits that you're trying to form, if you've got this chain of actions or this thing that you're doing every day, and then you have all of these other things that you could possibly be doing, you know, going out with friends, watching a movie, going and watching TV, going and playing a video game, doing all of these different things, you need to try and remove those options from what you're doing. You know, for me, when it comes to recording videos, sometimes it's tough based on time, based on some of the other things that I'm doing, some of the stuff that I've got to follow up on, but it's something that I have turned into a habit, i.e., at certain points when I've got my lists, I can tick off my lists until I know that I've got a certain amount of time, and then that certain amount of time I can spend doing these for you guys. You know, it has become a habit. Even if I end up having to take more time out and whatever else, I'm still going to want to put stuff together for you guys on the channel, because it's become habitual now. It's become this thing that sits and rolls over in my head. And at times I will start setting up for videos and things without realising it, because it has just been this thing that I've been kind of building into myself at this point. And so as a result, you know, removing those excess options, killing off the oh, well, I do have all these other things that I could do, but at this time, for this amount of time, no, I don't. You know, killing off those extra options means that I've been able to stick to what I'm doing. For the most part. And then the last thing is there are moments when we just go, it's not worth it, and we need to get rid of those too. Now, new habits can often be pretty fragile. They can be very easy to shake, very easy to kind of break and have collapse, and that can't happen if you want it to succeed. And one of the reasons that those happen a lot is, especially with things like New Year's resolutions, where people are hoping to develop, say, gym habits, they will start and then they will go, screw this, fuck it, it's not worth it, I can't be bothered, it's not worth the effort, it's not worth the time, whatever else, I'm out. And you need to prevent that from happening. Again, you can do that by having your pros and cons written out for everything. You can do it by having a statement written out, having a journal where you make sure that you are pointing out the value to yourself of all the things that you have done, including the habits that you're forming. You know, there are lots of ways to do it, but you just need to make sure, whichever way works best for you, you need to make sure that we end up with a deficit, a complete removal of these oh, forget about it moments. Yeah, because otherwise, if you're going to say, oh, forget about it to all of these things, then you're going to end up potentially saying, oh, forget about it to other things that could be much more important, much more useful to you, even if they're not things to develop into habits. So don't let yourself kind of give up on those things, follow through. But anyway, guys, you know, those are the 5 things that I would kind of pitch in on developing your habits, and especially ones that you want. Maybe your habit will be to practice habitually every day, in which case 2 videos this week can combine together to make you awesome. But otherwise, guys, I'd love to hear if there are any other things that you would add to this list in regards to creating habits, things that you've made work. As said, it usually takes about a month to 2 months to really develop a habit so that it becomes more natural and more automatic. So again, this is kind of one of those things where you need to start doing it and stick with it and be patient with it, and be patient with yourself and be willing to forgive yourself if you slip up, until it's there and it's rolling over and it's always coming back to you. But anyway, you know, if there are other things that have worked for you, I'd love to hear. I'm sure other people would as well. And thank you very much for watching, guys, and I will see you in the video later. Take care. Thank you very much for watching, guys. If you enjoyed this video or found it interesting, then please drop us a like, share this video, and subscribe for more. And I'll see you in the video later.